Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am your host and a wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Today is a special podcast. I have Olivia from HeadsUp coming on. Liv is one of my best friends. We've been friends for nearly a decade now, I think. And she is someone who is full of wisdom, amazing to talk to, and I'm really excited to share her with you. Liv and her husband Braden started a wellbeing organisation called HeadsUp. Liv is a qualified counsellor and Braden has a lot of experience public speaking and presenting. So we wanted to have a chat and really dig into the whole mental health side of things when it comes to wedding planning. It's a topic that comes up a lot on this podcast, and we often chat about it being a really stressful period in your life. It can bring on anxiety, huge emotions when things don't go to plan, or you have to deal with relational issues, managing people's expectations, a whole lot of pressure from people around you and online as well. It's a huge topic, so we dig into some of these things today. We also touch on Liv's wedding, which was back in 2018, and I photographed that one. So great to know a little bit of the behind the scenes. She shares some of her experiences and things that were stressful during that time in her life. And we chat through a lot of mental health issues and things that arise during wedding planning. We talk about stress, navigating family expectations and pressures, relational issues, boundaries with your own partner, the guest list, social anxiety, decision fatigue, financial stress, confidence issues and the pressure to look your absolute best on your wedding day, dealing with unsolicited opinions and what it is like if you are in the situation where you have to remove someone from your bridal party. We chat through why getting counselling yourself or with your partner might be beneficial in this season, some amazing marriage advice, and so much more. I think this is such an important topic, and there's no denying how weddings can cause a lot of stress and anxiety in your life. So it's really important to not only get help from amazing wedding vendors, but protect your own mental health by looking after yourself, having a great mindset and setting yourself up well for this whole process. So thankful to Liv for coming on. We actually met at a wedding, which I share that story in the episode. Make sure you check her out and heads up in the show notes or pop over to our Instagram at the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. You can see a few of her wedding photos there as well. So let's get straight into it. Enjoy episode 47 with Liv. Hi Liv, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. Feels a bit formal for us because you are one of my best friends and I actually photographed your wedding as well. But excited to chat to you about weddings and around the whole mental health side of them a bit more as well.
So fun. We've definitely talked about weddings a lot in the past as well. So it's very natural to us.
So good. Yeah, it might be a little fun story I thought to tell how we met each other. So it was kind of like mutual friends, I guess, or friend of a friend. Someone I knew in Auckland, their sister was getting married and asked me if I was free to photograph the wedding in Blenheim, where you grew up, and you were best friends, one of the best friends of the bride and a bridesmaid at that wedding. So we actually met at a wedding. I don't always befriend all the bridesmaids. I mean, we definitely are on the day, but you were soon moving to Auckland and we kind of just got chatting through the wedding weekend and we're like, oh, we should have coffee when you move up, and did that, and rest is history. So cute little story of us. So good. Yeah, you've recently started a new business and we are going to talk a little bit about your wedding, which was 2018. Is that right?
Yes, 6 years ago.
Crazy. It's been that long. Yeah, that will come up throughout a bit. But you've started a new business with your husband, and to get started with, I thought if you could just tell me a bit about the two of you, how you met, and a bit of your story, and then what sort of led you to the idea of starting HeadsUp.
Yeah, HeadsUp is our business, and we met while studying, and we were both working in youth work at the time, so we really connected over people and our love for helping people. which makes a lot of sense now, I guess, when you look at Heads Up. The whole mission is to give people a heads up on their mental wellbeing challenges and just help people. That's really what we're all about. So yeah, we met at college when we were studying, and then dated for 2 years. Were engaged for around a year, got married, have been married for 6 years. So now we've been together for 10 years, which is crazy. And I think we were actually dating when you and I met, Liz. I think we just started dating, and Braden might have been at the wedding as a guest from memory. I don't know. Do you remember meeting him?
I remember briefly meeting him, yeah, at the
Yeah, he
reception,
had
I think.
long hair back then.
Yes.
So yeah, we were both living in the South Island at that time, and then we moved to Auckland. And Braden worked for a place called the Parenting Place for lots of years, and he was a public speaker. So he travelled around the country doing presentations on mental health. And I used to be a dental assistant and orthodontic assistant, and then I decided to study counselling. I'd always done a lot of voluntary work with people and just loved it, and so that was part of why I went and studied counselling. And then I graduated, and we found ourselves thinking, what's next for us? And just decided that this would make sense. It's using both of our strengths and things that we're passionate about. So, yeah, we're really excited about it.
So cool. It's definitely, I feel like, the perfect thing for the two of you, knowing you quite well and yeah, having lots of chats over the years, walking through a few things, I think. Yeah, and then you getting qualified and yeah, just your whole background and experience is the perfect thing. So,
Oh,
so
thank you.
cool. Yeah, so you're not like specifically a wedding vendor per se, but you are married yourself and have been involved in a lot of weddings. One of those like amazing friends to so many people that you've been a bridesmaid quite a few times too. And yeah, a guest as well. But yeah, I thought if we could talk about certain mental health struggles that you've seen come up or yeah, arise particularly around weddings.
Definitely. It's so fun being involved in weddings. I wish it was a job. Well, I guess it is a job for some people. It's your job. But yeah, being a bridesmaid and going to weddings is so much fun. I love it so much. But yeah, there are a lot of challenges, especially when you're the bride. I haven't had as many issues being a bridesmaid. I think when you're the bride, it's a whole nother level. I think the two main things that I've noticed come up would be stress and relational issues. And I think it's just the nature of weddings and the cultural expectations for weddings. Like, there's a lot of pressure on people to have their wedding be a certain way and to meet all the expectations of all the different people, and then social media, and then you've got all your family's expectations. I mean, some people do elope or they have really small weddings, but
Which can also cause drama.
yeah, true. Yeah, but most people do involve their friends and family, or at least their family, and I think because of that, that's why you end up with those relational challenges. It's just part of people. People always come with, ups and downs. So stress and relational issues, I think, are the two main ones. Obviously, there's lots of other ones too.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's been super interesting. I mean, obviously, I've worked in the industry for a number of years, but doing this podcast as well, hearing a lot of the challenges, a bit more behind the scenes from brides and couples. And yeah, it can be a really stressful period of your life. So, yeah, we're going to
Yeah,
get into a few of those issues a bit more as we go as well. But yeah, I thought if we could touch on your wedding a little bit, how did you find your experience with that whole planning process, getting married, and yeah, maybe talk a bit about your day and like the vision for it, and then yeah, what you found hardest in the
yeah,
process.
sure. So our wedding was so much fun. I think I definitely struggled with both of those challenges as well that many people do struggle with, and I had other challenges, but it was a great day. I really enjoyed all the planning. I was very organized and had a plan for everything, and I had great support. I had a friend called Holly, who actually is the one who you knew, whose sister was getting married, that we met at the wedding of. She was amazing. She helped a lot with the styling and everything, and that just took a huge weight off my shoulders having that support. And yeah, I had friends like you who were just amazing and really helpful. I also had my challenges with friends and family just like everybody else, and stress, feeling overwhelmed. I was planning a wedding in Blenheim from Auckland, so that was a dynamic, I guess, that some people have, is where you're planning a wedding in a different place to where you live. It can just come with its challenges. The day itself started with me getting my lips sliced open by one of my bridesmaids who jumped on me when I got out, like I got out of bed, went out to the kitchen, and she was so excited to see me, bless her. She jumped on me and sliced my lip open with her fingernail. And then I went to the mirror and smiled at a mouthful of blood, and my lip was swelling up immediately. It was so funny. And I cried because I was just like, what do I do? Poor thing, she felt so bad. But honestly, I just laugh. I think it's a good story. But yeah, that's how the day started. When I woke up, got my lips sliced open and then sat there with an ice pack. So that was fun. So we had so much fun getting ready. I really loved that part of the day. And Liz was there taking the photos, and we had the best photographer ever, of course. And it was just nice having friends around, family. We had my aunties popped in and grandma popped in. There's lots of people popping in. It got a bit much for me to remember, but I had a great time. That's the main thing. We just spent the day in the morning getting ready and having fun. And then wedding was at a church in Blenheim, which was cool. Loved it, and that was what I always wanted, so that was great. We had all the seasons in the day. It was freezing, it was sunny, we had everything. And then the reception and afternoon, we hired a place called Vintners, which is out in the winery sort of area in Marlborough, and that was beautiful. Yeah, overall it went pretty well, apart from the sliced lip and the Four Seasons. What I found hard was probably more the actual lead up to the wedding. The day itself was pretty good. I had a pretty good time, but it was definitely the planning. I struggle with assertiveness. It's something I'm getting better at. So all the decision making was really hard. There's so many decisions to make, as you know, around weddings. And I found myself getting quite overwhelmed with all the decisions, never ending decisions about how things were going to look and how things were going to go. So that was tough, and I think that caused me quite a bit of stress. And also perfectionism is another thing I'm getting better at, but I think I'm definitely a perfectionist, and so that was tough. I had really high expectations and was quite hard on myself. And then relational stuff, like I said, I think there's a lot of expectations. We had really supportive families, which was amazing, but they had expectations as well. And lots of different people have opinions and expectations, as I'm sure you know. So that was tough. I had definitely had relational problems with one in particular bridesmaid, and I actually ended up unbridesmaiding a bridesmaid and choosing another one, which was really, really tough. I definitely didn't find that fun and didn't want to have to do that, but at the same time, I was the one who made the decision in the first place to have that person, and probably should have made a better decision. But anyway, hindsight. Yeah, those are some of the challenges I had.
And that's so relatable, I think, for a lot of people who have experienced that kind of thing. Yeah, touching on those sort of relational issues and navigating family expectations and pressure. Often that is, that from parents or other family members that are invited or expect to have a bit of control over the wedding, especially if they're financially contributing too. Can you talk a bit about how couples can navigate this and communicate well through that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously, it's easy for me to talk in hindsight and look back, but that's how we learn. We learn from the past and we learn from other people's mistakes. So I think if I could give someone advice on that, it'd probably be to have a direct conversation with anyone who's contributing to find out if their contribution is conditional. Because sometimes people will contribute, whether that be financially or in other ways, and they might not tell you, but it might be conditional. So, for example, some parents might give you money on the condition that they have a say on the guest list or on certain aspects of the wedding. Or you might have someone who volunteers their time, but then they want to have a say on what it is that they're helping you with. I know it's tough to have those conversations. It's definitely not easy, but just do it. Do it early on. If someone offers you money or time or a gift, or if you are asking your parents or somebody else, then just have that direct conversation. I would ask them, is this conditional? And if it is, what is it conditional on? And see what they say. If you're not happy with that, try and negotiate. So a bit of back and forth. What about this? What about this? Until you can come to a compromise. Because then you go in with really clear expectations.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think just like open communication from the get-go, and then if there are conditions on when we're talking about money, is it really worth taking it if you're not happy with those conditions, and maybe you need to rethink your plans a little bit and potentially even say no to that money if it's going to cause unhappiness down the track. So something to
Yeah.
think about, definitely.
Yeah. And at the same time, being, grateful and respectful of those gifts too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ironically, wedding planning can also cause a bit of a wedge in your relationship as it sort of takes over the beast it is and causes a lot of stress for some people. And what can couples do to also communicate well with each other and sort of set those boundaries around wedding planning as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because the whole thing is about your relationship and then it can become a wedge. But yeah, I think just do date nights and maybe agree to have like one night a week where you meet up and you don't talk about the wedding. Because I know some guys who got really tired of it, including Braden. He wouldn't mind me saying he got really tired of me just talking about the wedding non-stop leading up to the wedding. So just having a date night once a week or whenever you can, where you agree not to talk about it, but also maybe booking in time to actually sit there and talk about the wedding as well, so that you feel like you are going to get that time to do that. So maybe you could do like once a week, you have a couple of hours together without wedding, and then once a week, you have an intentional couple of hours where you talk about the wedding, and then everything in between is just see how it goes. Easier said than done.
All about putting things in the calendar, being
Yeah,
intentional about it, because it can
definitely.
just take over otherwise. Yeah, one of the biggest things that comes up again and again is struggling with the guest list, which is such a hard thing for people, and yeah, is often dictated by money or your venue. And so, yeah, I think that causes a lot of stress. Do you have any tips around managing that well? Yeah, how people can do it well?
Oh, this one is so hard. I saw this question and I was like, this is really, really tough. I don't know if there's a magical answer to this question around how to navigate it well, because I think, like you said, there are lots of different reasons why the guest list is limited, and that's sort of out of our control a lot of the time. Like it might be that we could only get one venue and they've got limitations, or we've got a budget and that's a limitation, or we've got gifts that were conditional and that's a limitation. So there's lots of different things. I think you could honestly do everything right and someone would still be offended. So really, you just got to try your best, and just remember, this is your wedding. This isn't your cousin's wedding or your mum's wedding or your best friend's wedding. This is your wedding. So if you really like someone and they're a really good friend, then make a way to try and get them there. I know it's hard, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's always going to be a bit of drama with it. Maybe it's better to just expect a little bit of drama. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Go in with eyes open. And yeah, it's a hard thing, especially if you're quite a conflict avoidant person. But yeah, just trying to like really remember it's our day, and I don't have to please everyone because I simply can't.
Yes, definitely. You're not going to please everyone.
Another thing that comes up a lot around weddings and in general, even I feel like in this generation's anxiety and social anxiety. And yeah, that can be a big one with being like the couple on the day you are, and especially at the bride, I think. You're the center of attention a lot of the day. And yeah, a lot of people get really anxious and worried about this, or in general have a bit of social anxiety around big events and things like that. Is there anything people can do in the lead up and on the day to help manage this?
Yeah, that's so relatable, and it's definitely really, really normal to feel like that. So wedding social anxiety, if you want to call it that, is very normal. And I think part of that is because it's not normal for most people to go to this huge event and be the center of attention for a whole day. Like maybe if you're an actress or something, but for most of us, that's really not normal. So it is understandable to feel like that. I definitely relate to that. I struggled with that, but I also struggled with, like, there were weddings where I was involved or a bridesmaid, and there were people going who had like quite seriously bullied me in the past, and I was really anxious about seeing them to the point where I had to go see a counsellor, talk it through for a few weeks, make some plans with her. I found that really helpful. So not just telling yourself this is normal, this is understandable to feel like this, but talking to people about it and coming up with some strategies. So some of the strategies that we came up with were to just have some lines up my sleeve, as in things I could say to people if I just didn't know what to say to them, especially those people I was really nervous about seeing. So it would be things like, I love your dress, or just pick something you like about how they look and compliment it. And also lines you can pull out to get away if you need to. So just like, oh, I need to go get a drink of water. And then having maybe a safe person who knows about how you're feeling on the day, who you can go to, and they know that if you come over to them, it's probably because you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So when you're a bride, that could be like a bridesmaid or an auntie, or yeah, just someone you feel really safe with. And yeah, seeing a counsellor, they can talk through some ways to sort of calm your nervous system if you're feeling really on edge, and just give you some strategies and be a sounding board for you to talk it all through with.
Such good advice. You've touched on it a little bit about getting decision fatigue and that sort of overwhelm that comes up a lot, and people end up a lot of times starting to resent the wedding planning and just wanting it to be done, get it over with. And yeah, obviously there's certain vendors that we talk about a lot that can help with this side of things. Yeah, that you can hire for your day to help with the admin and the overwhelm, like a coordinator or a planner. But is there anything that couples can do to avoid becoming burnt out and resentful during this process?
Yeah, great question. I think just being organized, honestly, being organized is actually really good for general anxiety, because you feel like you have a sense of control in some ways. I know you can't control everything, and that's important to remember. We can't control everything on the day, but we can have a plan, and I think that will help. And also delegating what you can. I would choose to delegate the things you aren't as fussy about. So if you're really picky about something, be careful who you delegate it to, or maybe just do it yourself. But if you're a little bit more relaxed about it, then delegate and just ask somebody. People usually love helping with weddings because people love weddings. So normally if you ask a friend, like, could you help with this? They'll be so keen to get involved. What we did on the day is I asked a good friend of mine if she would be the point person. So I didn't have a wedding planner as such, although I had Holly, who was amazing, and she did some of the styling. I also asked another friend if she could have every vendor's name and number, and also a timeline of what was meant to happen on the day, when it was meant to happen, where it was meant to happen, and the photo list as well. She had the group lists of who we wanted group photos with, and her whole job was to just make sure everything ran smoothly on the day, and that was really helpful. So I'd highly recommend doing that if you don't have a wedding planner or you can't afford one. It's a cheap and fun way to get someone involved and also just make things run a lot smoother.
Such great advice. Pick your good organized friend. And yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially if they have that personality that's likes being in control. But yeah, think about a few things you can let go and ask people that you trust to help you, because yeah, like you say, people want to help, and yeah, take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Another massive thing with weddings is the financial stress that can be a huge burden. And yeah, you're not a financial advisor, but I do know that you guys are quite savvy savers. Do you have any advice on how couples can avoid stress around money during this time?
So hard as well, because you have all these dreams that you want for your wedding, and it's really hard because sometimes you've got to choose between meeting the budget and having the ideal option. So obviously having a budget is great, and trying not to blow it too much. And then the other thing, I think similar to delegating, I would prioritize what's really important. Pick the most important things that you want to spend the most money on, and then things that you aren't as worried about, just spend less on them. So, for example, you might be really hung up on having like a certain dress by a certain person or whatever. You might want to go spend heaps on that, but then save money and do your own flowers or do your own makeup or get someone more affordable to do those. I think it's tough though, because you have all these expectations and you want to have the dream wedding, but then you've got a budget. If only there was just an endless amount of money for weddings and we could just all have
So
everything
true.
exactly how we want.
Yeah. Oh, if only.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing that comes up a lot is every sort of Tom, Dick, and Sally seems to come out of the woodwork with their unsolicited opinions with wedding planning and all about your wedding. Do you have any tips on how to navigate when people share these opinions with you, or, yeah, those sort of awkward conversations?
Yeah, it's so true. They definitely do. I think they're often trying to help. I know sometimes people are coming from maybe a place of jealousy or judgment, but I always try and assume people's motives are good until they prove otherwise, even though that's hard to do, because it's just going to happen. There's no question about that. People will definitely give their unsolicited opinions and advice about your wedding. So, yeah, I think assume that they're coming from a good place unless they prove otherwise. And it makes it easier to just brush it off and not worry about it. The thing about weddings is there is no such thing as a perfect wedding because everyone's got a different opinion. And like the perfect dress doesn't exist because everyone has a different opinion about what makes the perfect dress, or you could say that about anything. So just remember that this is your wedding. It's about doing things how you want in a way that's going to make you happy. Don't worry too much about what people think.
That's great advice. Easier said than done sometimes, but I think if you can go into it with that attitude and, yeah, set yourself up like that, then that is a good way to go.
Yeah, it's definitely still hard. That's for sure. It's not nice, but
It's not like there's a magic answer for a lot of these things, but yeah, I
yeah,
guess a lot of it is around mindset and just, yeah, trying
perspective.
to, yeah, totally. Confidence is a big issue, especially with women. That comes up a lot during this time in your life, feeling comfortable in your body, and also that huge pressure that a lot of people feel to look their absolute best. Like, this is meant to be the best day, the best they look ever in their life, which can cause some disheartening moments. And yeah, there's also this sort of huge culture around shredding for the wedding, extreme dieting, yeah, those kind of toxic habits, things that people can get into. Do you have any advice around all of that?
I honestly feel like a bit of a hypocrite giving advice because I bought into that. I bought into it. I was at the gym and reading for the wedding, all that stuff. So it feels a bit hypocritical to give advice.
It can be done in a healthy way, I think,
Yeah,
though. But yeah, there's like
yeah,
a
it can be done
line.
in a healthy way. Definitely. That's a really good point. And the other thing to remember is that if your relationship's healthy, they didn't propose to you because they want you to go lose 10 kg and be really skinny or whatever it is that you think you need to do. They proposed to you because they love you for who you are. Just remember that this is about the relationship. This is about your love for each other, and they love you for who you are. They don't love you for who you could be if it's healthy. So, yeah, and if they don't love you for who you are, then that's something to think about as well, because change doesn't happen quickly. It's a slow process.
Yeah, definitely just like focusing on doing it in a healthy way, healthy habits, like you should in general life, eating well, still having treats here and there, like
Yeah,
exercising,
looking
getting
after
enough
yourself.
sleep. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Sunlight, sleep. Sleep is so important. Don't neglect sleep for other things because that is so important. And just healthy exercise, eat nutritious food, all that stuff.
yeah, so
Yeah.
good.
It's important for our mental health too, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
connected, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, totally connected.
And yeah, I know you touched on having a few hard things with your own bridal party. And yeah, for some, choosing their bridal party can be a really stressful part of the process. And yeah, people can get really worried about offending people, leaving them out. And yeah, it also can be a tricky thing as relationships change and evolve. And a lot of people these days are engaged for like 1 to 2 years plus. So things can change over that time as well. But yeah, do you have any advice on choosing well and what to do if issues do arise? Or yeah, you find yourself having to fire a bridesmaid per se or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard, and you could probably learn from my mistakes that I did. I worried a lot about the reaction I'd get if I didn't choose people or if I did leave people out, and that probably led me to make some decisions that weren't healthy. Yeah, that's what it was. I just worried about what people thought, worried about the reaction I was going to get, and that wasn't healthy. So I made those decisions, and then it backfired, and I did have to fire a bridesmaid, unfortunately. So don't do what I did. Um,
So normal
don't
though.
worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry about the reaction you're going to get. Think about how they're actually going to be on the day. Are they going to put your interests first and want you to be happy, or are they a jealous type or the type of person that struggles to celebrate others? Because they're not going to change for your wedding if that's how they are normally. People don't tend to change for one event, they will be who they are. And then if you have to make the unfortunate decision to unbridesmaid someone like I did, I would say have that conversation directly. I know it's really hard, and especially if you don't like conflict, it's easy to just want someone else to have the conversation for you, but try and do it yourself. Even if you have to do it over the phone, if they're not in the same town, have the conversation directly. Be respectful. You don't have to get nasty. You don't have to ruin their reputation and go around slandering them, and just try and be respectful and be honest with them. So for me, I was just honest and just said, look, I don't feel like you have my best interests at heart, and I feel like you're making it about you, and I just need more support and people who want what's best for me in this time, something like that. Keep it brief. Don't go into too many details. Sometimes the sort of people you might be dealing with in those situations are the sort of people who will spin things and twist things. So keeping it really brief is always helpful because there's less for them to play with. Never easy, but that would be my advice on how to have that conversation if you have to.
That's great advice. Definitely something tricky to navigate. Social media plays a huge part in our lives and in wedding planning, and it seems that somehow your algorithm just knows when you're engaged. You start getting served all this wedding content, and it can be really hard for people not to fall into a comparison trap with seeing all the amazing content out there, and even comparing to just their friends' weddings that have recently got married. And it's easy to just say, oh, just switch off the apps, get off Instagram, Pinterest, whatever, which is, yeah, easier said than done. But do you have any advice on navigating all of that and how people can deal with it?
Yeah, it is really hard because it can be a really exciting and inspirational place too. It doesn't have to be all negative. Like I love seeing wedding vendors and the stuff they put up, the content they put on Instagram and things can be really fun to look at when you're dreaming about your wedding. So it's not all bad. I think, like you said, you can have boundaries around it. Like you could just allow yourself a certain amount of time to look at it. And I know it sounds really cliche, but just telling yourself this is the highlights. I'm not seeing everything here. I'm just seeing the highlight reel. Perfect doesn't exist. Cliche again, but it's just the truth. Perfect doesn't exist. This is the highlights. It is hard. That's one of the issues with social media, but maybe reframing it and thinking about it in a positive way. Like, this is really exciting. I get to get inspired. I get to celebrate other people, which is fun. Celebrating the things I love about other people's weddings. Yeah.
Yeah, being like realistic as well. I think I've had a few chats recently with people, and especially if you're in the industry, you kind of know the costs of things a bit more. But yeah, a lot of those incredible weddings that we see online or on Pinterest or whatever are massive budgets, huge American, European, north of six-figure weddings, and that's just not realistic for your everyday Kiwi most of the time. So
That is a
keeping that
really
in
good
mind
point.
is definitely helpful, just to try and avoid that comparison, which is such a real thing.
Yeah, you don't know what's gone on behind the scenes for them. You don't know what their budget is. Yeah, comparison is never helpful unless you're just celebrating the other person and looking at the positives. It can be nice, but
The thief of joy, another
yes,
cliche quote, but so true.
so true. I was going to say it and then I was like, I've been so cliche
Everyone
already.
says that. Yeah.
It is true
It's
though.
a cliche for a reason.
Exactly. They normally
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. And you're a counselor yourself, and I'm a big believer in therapy. I think it's beneficial for everyone and not just the clinically mentally unwell. And I think, this is becoming more of an accepted thing these days with our generation, which is great. Bit of stigma around it, especially, depending who your family is, who you grew up with, your friends, that kind of thing. So, for someone that's never done it or is kind of worried, scared about opening up to a stranger, doesn't know where to start, what can you say to them?
Yeah, it is so helpful around wedding time. I saw a counsellor quite a lot around the time of our wedding. What could I say to people who maybe haven't been and are a bit nervous? I honestly really hope that going to counselling is sort of like going to the spa and you go and yes, it's slightly uncomfortable, maybe if you're having some waxes or something, if you're digging really deep into things and talking about tough things, but I really want people to leave feeling better about themselves and feeling lighter. And a good counselor should never make you feel judged. So you're not going along to get judged and criticized and told off by the counselor. You're going so they can support you and help you become the happiest and best version of yourself that you want to be. So don't give up as well if you go somewhere and you don't click with them, because there's lots of different counselors out there, just like there's lots of different personalities out there, and it can take a while to find the right one. But obviously, come see me.
Yeah.
I do Zoom counseling. Or if you are just struggling to find someone in your area and you want to find someone in person, honestly, I'm really happy to help. If people want to email me, I can recommend people in their area. I'm all about helping people find the right fit, even if that's not me. So, yeah, just keep trying because it can be so life changing. And I've had bad and good experiences, and the good ones have just been so, so helpful for me.
So good. Definitely worth just finding the right person. And I don't know, some people say it's a little bit like dating, and you kind of
Yeah,
go on a date or two and figure out if they're the right fit for you. I mean, I hope people can tell from this chat that you are an incredible person with great advice. And if they feel like, you might be the right fit, then definitely get in touch with Liv. I'm obviously biased as her friend, not like she's specifically counseled me, but in a friendship way. For sure. Amazing. Highly
and
recommend.
vice versa.
So good. So something to definitely think about during that time, wedding planning, that can be so stressful, and a normal thing to do as well. I think, like, don't be
Yeah,
worried or think things must be really bad if I need to talk to someone. It's just like a healthy
no,
thing to do, even from the get-go, and just to like get some good strategies, talk things out, and not have that judgment like you say. I think sometimes you can get that from friends or family, and it's really nice to just have a neutral person to listen and to talk to.
absolutely. Helped me through our wedding season for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, my counselor was amazing through that time.
Another thing that people may not think about during this time is pre-marriage counseling, which is quite a common practice in a lot of different cultures and faith communities. Yeah, I think a lot of people think, oh, couples therapy is just for when we're like in crisis as a last resort. But it can be a really healthy thing to do when you're engaged or even earlier in your relationship. Do you recommend it to people? And what can be gained from doing that?
Oh my gosh, I so recommend it. I don't offer marriage counseling from HeadsUp, but I highly recommend it. And again, if anyone wants me to try and help them find someone, I'd be so keen to help. We didn't have counselling as such. We went to a pre-marriage course, which is pretty similar, to be honest. Probably a lot of the questions that we answered during the course were the sort of questions you'd answer in the counselling. And it was facilitated by the two most beautiful, amazing, gorgeous people. They were so great, and they just made us feel not judged in all the things that I just talked about. So you're not going to get judged, you're going to get supported. And the sort of things we talked about were expectations for marriage. That was a big one. What are your expectations for even who does what jobs around the house? Because sometimes you don't talk about those things and you don't think about them, and then later on they might become a tension. Values are huge. What are your values? What are your beliefs around finances and religion or faith and education and family boundaries? All of those things. Even if you feel like you have already talked it all through, I still think it's worth it, because they might ask a question you hadn't thought of, or that you thought you talked about but you hadn't quite talked about enough. So, oh, the funny thing as well, funny story. So they asked us what to write down our biggest stressors, so the things that cause us stress in our life. And we wrote out, like, we wrote the list or whatever, and my list was really long because I can be more of a stressor type one, whatever you want to call it. So my list was really long, it was like all the wedding stresses, blah, blah, blah. And then Braden's list, guess what it said? Olivia.
Just everything.
So yeah, that was a learning curve for me. But he still loved me enough to marry me, so even though I was his biggest stressor. But yeah, it's really, really good to go to pre-marriage counselling. I highly recommend it. Just do it. Honestly, it's so worth the money.
Yeah, so good to just like step back and have a bit of a objective view over all those things. And a lot of the ones that are like you go through a course or whatever are run by a married couple that are a bit later in life, been married maybe 40 years or something, which I think is quite a cool thing to have someone like that mentor you or just give you some advice from someone that's been married that long. So that's a cool thing to do, even if you don't do counseling or something. Just talk to some people that have gone a bit further down the track than you have.
Definitely a good idea.
And do you have any other marriage advice or things people can do to set themselves up well for this lifelong commitment?
Oh my goodness. I feel like all the answers I'm going to give are going to be cliche and cheesy again. You've probably heard all this before. I think just someone who has their strong, important values are really similar to yours. You don't have to be aligned on everything, because you're not going to find your twin, but just the really important big things. For us, that was like our beliefs and our faith, and even financial goals, your aspirations for the future, your values around family and what you want your family to look like. Those might be some of the important things to you. But yeah, try and find someone who you align with on those big values, and then just marry someone who you could see yourself being best friends with if you weren't their partner, because you're stuck with them for life. So you want to get on, the feelings and the chemistry comes and goes, but you're stuck with that person. So marry someone who's your best friend.
Love it. Amazing. And I think we sort of briefly touched on it at the beginning, but maybe can you just tell us a bit more about HeadsUp, what it is, what kind of services you offer, and like plans for the future with HeadsUp?
Yeah, sure. So HeadsUp is a wellbeing organization, and the whole goal is to give people a heads up on some of the mental wellbeing challenges that life brings. So we offer counselling, courses, presentations at this stage. You never know what else we might come up with. And I'm the counsellor, and then Braden, my husband, he's got a lot of expertise and experience in public speaking, communicating. So that's where that part comes in. And the courses are in progress. So we're currently writing some courses. The goal with those is to provide people with tools that they're learning counselling, but they can do it at home, and it's a bit more affordable if they can't afford ongoing counselling. So we'll be doing things like resiliency, relationships, all of those fun topics. So keep an eye out for those, and I'd love to meet you if you need counselling. I offer Zoom and I have a studio here in Christchurch as well.
So excited to see where you guys go. Big fans of yours, obviously, but yeah, definitely recommend people get in touch if you have any questions, or yeah, you're looking for a counsellor or presentations, courses down the track. So exciting, and we'll definitely obviously link to all your social media, website, everything in the show notes and on Instagram, so people can find you and follow along. And I'm loving all your reels and helpful videos and stuff at the moment, so definitely go and check them out. But yeah, thank you
Thanks.
so much for coming on the podcast. So
It's all
lovely to
right.
chat.
I feel like I need to blow your trumpet though. Like, follow Liz. She's the best. I'll just brag about your photography. She was so responsible, so reliable, like was so organized, explained the whole process to us, made us feel so relaxed on the day. We just loved having her there. She was just a nice, calm presence on the day and did a beautiful job as always. She's the best. So go high, Liz, as well.
Oh, I didn't ask you to do that. So
No,
nice.
got to make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, maybe we'll share a few of your wedding photos along with the post as well, so people can
Yeah,
see.
can show off your skills.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you. Love you a lot.